So I wanted to show you, a couple guys were asking me how you split the screen with the Veris or Zeus platforms. You know, Robert and I think Jay were talking about it on the comment section. So whether you're on a Veris or if you're on a Zeus, there's only one way you can get the scope or meter to follow you around or split the screen, and that's through the guided component test. So all you got to do is open this up and pick something. You can always change it later to anything you want. So I'm just going to go into the guided component test menu and pick something here. Let's go to the fuel injection, crankshaft sensor, signature test. So now it still thinks I'm trying to test this sensor, but all I'm trying to do is just open up the scope or the meter to do what I want. So where you hit view meter, it's still going to act like it's trying to set up for this crankshaft sensor, where it's going to preset the voltage and the time base for this crankshaft sensor. You notice my tip is still live, and it's real handy if you were testing a sensor. But up here in the top here, you see another meter tab. So I'm going to click that meter tab one more time, and it takes it full screen. Now if I hit that meter tab a third time, it puts it in a separate window that I can shrink down or move around to wherever I want. So at this point I'm just going to minimize it. And if you look down on my taskbar, it's down here on my taskbar now. So if I hit the home button, go back to the diagnostic suite, I can hit scan tool, and I'm right in the scan tool where I left off, which was the bidirectional control of the fuel pump. So at this point, all I'm going to do is minimize this a little bit to where I'm in half a screen, and it gives me a lot of area over here to where I can come down and grab my scope viewer, slide it over here next to it. Then I can blow it up and make it as big as I want. So I'm hooked to a little circuit simulator board here. That's why you got that square wave going across. But at this point, what I would do is if I was testing a fuel pump, or doesn't really matter what I would be testing, this is where I'd use one of these fuse adapters where I'd pull a fuel pump fuse out and stick this in the fuse box. Your fuse goes back here. Then you just hook it with a low amp clamp. Then I can activate the fuel pump with the scan tool while I watch the results on the scope or meter or whatever I've chose to use. Now, I use this feature all the time, not just for drivability, but let's say a window motor problem. You know, I'd go to the fuse box, pull the window motor fuse, put this in, hook it with my low amp clamp, and I'd activate the window with the door module on the scanner side while I watch the waveform on the scope. And I just live at the fuse box with these adapters and my low amp clamp. And if you got a halfway modern car, you got pretty much control of the fuse box with your bidirectional controls of your scanner. And just live there, activate the circuit with the low amp clamp, and 9 times out of 10, it'll give you enough direction to where you need to go before anything has to come apart. And if I want to look at fuel injectors or coil on plugs, I usually pull the fuses out, put these adapters in, and bam, I got them all on the screen right away. Now, what I also like about this is I have my shop key open as well. So if I needed a wiring diagram at this point, all I'd have to do is open up my shop key, and I've got my wiring diagram up that quick. So then I can scroll around my wiring diagram, find what I want, and I'll minimize it, and I'm right back to where I left off. And I do that all the time when I've got my scanner open. I always live here like this, and I can open as many windows as I want. Just how small do you want to work with them? Because there'll be a lot of times where I might be doing some drivability problems, and I want to use my volumetric efficiency calculator. So I usually have it down here on my taskbar where I can grab the scan tool data. I'll move him over here. I can grab the scan tool data I need to fill in here, and then I can calculate my volumetric efficiency after I've done a road test. So I keep that up here all the time. And then I've got, of course, my shop key, and also I like pico scopes as well, even though I don't use it as much, but I'm kind of a scope nut, and I just bought one of the cheaper 2-channel scopes from Pico, and I use my little BNC to banana adapters, and I use all my accessories that I already have. So if I want to, I loaded the Pico scope up here, so I can open up my Pico scope right here while where I command things on and off as well. So one of the great things about a Verus or a Zeus is that it is a computer, and you can download third-party tools to it. And so I've got my shop key on there, I've got VE calculators, I've got a Pico scope on there. I've got another thing that I use for a waveform viewer. So here's some software I put on there if I want to do a running compression test or view any of my saved waveforms. I got this on there. It's just become a one-stop tool, and I got the workstation to where I can keep everything together on it. And I can put my favorite tools. I've also got like a first look sensor, which is a third-party tool that I installed on the Zeus here. Works great. And so I just live with the being able to blend the scope and the scanner or whatever I'm using, information systems, and I can have as many windows open as I want. So, oops. So if I wanted to have several things opened here, so I want to run both my scopes. So now I've got my Pico. I got my Pico going, and I've got my Snap-on scanner both going, or both scopes going, and I got my scanner over here. And then if I wanted to pull up my volume efficiency calculator, you know, I could set it down over here. If I needed my shop key again real quick, I can I can open this up and do whatever I want here with the shop key information. I can also shrink this down into a window, keep it open over here to where I've got my wiring diagram open on the same page as my scope and my scanner, and you can really start to multitask a lot with the tool. And I love having it in the workstation with the big monitor, mouse, and keyboard. But then I like the ability to be able to take it out of the unit and go right to the car with it. And I've got another scope that I can hook to it that's completely Bluetooth, so I'm wireless with the scanner and the scope. But it just gives you a lot of ways to test, and I just love being able to multitask like this. So that was one of the reasons that I bought the Verus Pro when it came out, is because it had the ability to do stuff like this. And now, as the hardware's gotten better, it just keeps getting better. So I'm a big fan of the tool. I don't think most people use it to even close to what its potential is, and they only use it for a fraction of what the tool can do. I like it most for diagnosing problems, no matter what they are, because I've got my meter, my scope, my scanner, my information, so just everything I need wrapped up right there on one screen, and I can get her done. So anyway, hope that helps. If there's any questions, just let me know in the comment section. But I'll go over this one more time here. I'll go ahead and close the scope off. So when you're in the scan tool here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the home button. I'm going to go to my guided component test menu. I'm going to open anything because I can change it later. So once you're here, the meter button up on top, you click it one time, it takes it full screen. Click it a third time, it puts it in a separate window that you can shrink and move around. At this point, I'll just minimize it, and then I'll go back to my home button, which takes me right back to my diagnostic suite. I hit my scan tool, I'm right back to where I left off on the scanner, where I got bidirectional controls of the fuel pump. I'll shrink this down a little bit to where I can just use half the page. And then on my taskbar, you'll see my scope viewer, and then I can bring it over here and move it around and make it big as I want or whatever. Or if I want to add my pico, I can add my pico here. And then got shrunken down too much. So there's my pico. And then if I wanted to add something else like wiring diagrams, I can shrink it down and put it wherever too. But you can kind of see, you can get the picture. Most of the times I'm just using my meter or scope and my scan tool, and I'm here. And then if I want to go somewhere else, I'll bring it full screen and do what I need to do, and then I'll minimize it and right back to where I need to be. But anyway, hope that helps. Any questions, just leave them in the comment section, and we'll talk to you guys later.